What is up, everybody? RLTK podcast. Jordan here, kicking it with Chris. As always, Chris, what is going on, my boy?
What's up, bro? Mine look different location, all right?
Yes, okay. It's all good, bro. We
Different
we switching
location,
things up a little bit. We trying to shift
just a
into the
tad
digital.
bit.
We trying to shift into the digital because we want to, like we've been saying for forever, we want to start getting more guests on. We had our boy
Yeah.
Marcelino on last time, and that was dope.
That's
He was
right.
in person. And
Yeah.
so what we're trying to do now is have more guests on digitally. And so we wanted to shift into doing our stuff remotely, which would make life a little bit easier for everybody involved. So excited for that. Got the new
Sooner or
podcast
later
set
we'll
up.
have like 8 people on the
Bro,
screen.
I actually really want to do that. Like have conversations
like
with
for real.
a ton of people, a ton of youth workers on, and just be chopping it up about all types of stuff like that. That has to happen. That is cooking and percolating. We finna make that happen. Some live conversations. Bro. I think it'd be killer. So that'd and then dope, we can get from our audience to what kinds of things they want us to chop about. So I think that'd be super dope.
One thing I wanted to say, one thing I would like is for the viewers, the ones who watch our podcast. First of all, we appreciate it. Thank you for watching our shows. Thank you for subscribing and liking. We ask that you will interact with us in the comment sections, just we want to make this a place of dialogue, not just trying to talk to you or two individuals having a conversation, but we want to interact with the community because we recognize that this is a problem that we're all in. And, and so we're in a spaghetti field of mixed ideas and conclusions and concepts, and we want to be able to flush these things out accurately so we can be able to serve the community better. And so I just would just say interact with us in the comments section, man. If you have any thoughts, ideas, like questions or anything, just we would like to interact with y'all, man.
I think the important thing about that too is you discern the mind of Christ together, right? It's not this individual like, yo, I got all the answers over here. You don't have none of the answers over there. We very much all need each other to discern who Christ is and how he's at work. And I think that's cross denominationally, that's cross ethnicity, that's globally, right? Like the church is not this American or Western entity. The church is a global entity, right? Christ is reconciling the world to himself. And I think we have things to learn from our brothers and sisters all over the world. And so obviously, yes, we're in a Western context doing ministry in the urban cores of our country in the United States, right? But I think there's things that we can learn from people everywhere who are involved in our podcast or whatever else, our content and our resources. So super excited about that. But bro, let's get into it today. I know we said we just wanted to get back to basics today and just have a conversation about Jesus, which is not basic at all in the slightest, which is funny as you even say that. And so
I know.
First question, who is Jesus to you? Chris Powell. Government name?
The one I guess for me, what he is to me is a symbol of a moral pursuit. That's what I would say. Me being aimless for half of my life, me being lost for majority of my life, from not understanding anything, like literally from the education system failing me to me learning how to read later on in life, me being oblivious, me following the crowd, not questioning anything, any deed that I am doing. It put me in this position where Christ set me down and revealed himself to me and said he's God and he exists and he's real. And he showed me that he is the bridge gap to the ethical dilemma. And he is the symbol of that. And so when I see him, that's what I see.
Bro, I think it's important for people to understand the profundity of what you just said, because for me and you, when I hear you say those words, I know exactly what you're talking about. For other people, they wouldn't understand that you come from the hood. They wouldn't understand that you come from a high school that just passed kids through and didn't really worry about the education that they had. They wouldn't understand that basically you learned to reading the scriptures and the Holy Spirit leading you. They wouldn't understand that your thirst for understanding and knowledge comes from like what God has done in you and what he's called you to.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like all this is him. That's basically, it's him, bro. Like it's all him. You know what I mean? And so it's just, I'm thankful for that. You know, like I never
100%.
thought that I would be in this position to, like, I know this is off topic, but it's kind of on topic. You know, when we think about the way the world is set up, the way that the world has fallen, and how the structure of the laws that governs the world, like how everything is just broken, and how, you know, like we question, why does suffering exist? Why do people suffer? Why do good people suffer? And why is there bad people? Why is there injustice? Like all these questions that we need to ponder and answer to our best abilities. Sometimes I find myself just in wonder of awe, because God is in control of all things. And I heard one guy said the reason why suffering exists is to see that we need God. And so, like, it makes sense to me how the things that comes against us is better for our good. Like there's no other way to actually, for me, to see God unless if I have some level of a thorn in my side, to know how I can run to him. Because if I'm just good, there's no, because how do you get someone to ponder God? Right? I think it was Carl Jung that said that the reason why people don't think about God because they don't think they need to be saved.
Yeah, they
and
don't.
So I think it's,
especially
you know what
in
I
the
mean?
West.
So exactly. And so how do you ponder Christ? How do you ponder something outside of yourself? Suffering.
It's good, bro.
Struggle.
It's true.
Hardship.
It's true.
You know what I'm saying? And so I think that's, and all I'm saying is that sometimes I think we have to think about our positions as humans. We are put in a position to observe things. We are observers. We are made to observe we are made to observe the observable. And that's even going to be like that when we get to heaven, bro. We're going to observe the glory and the wondrous and the wonderful nature of God for eternity.
Yep.
And that's even a piece of that now on this planet Earth, is that we get to sit here and be amazed and be in awe of the creation that God has done, that he spoke with words. And like, sometimes you can just sit back and like, man, even though there's all this, I am amazed of what you've done and how you've done it and how you bring all this back to yourself, even though it rejected you. You get what I'm saying?
Yep.
So sometimes I think we're just made to observe the beauty of all this, you know, and rejoice in it. Yeah, I mean, I know
That's good.
that was a
No, it's good,
tangent,
bro. It's
but
real good.
I think we just have to be reminded that the world is beautiful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's something that's been lost on Gen Z, and Gen A. But I guess to answer my own question, I would say, who is Jesus to me, or who is Jesus? Because I think the answers that we're giving are true transcendently. They're just pieces of the answer. It's not the full answer, right?
Yeah.
I would say he is the answer, and what I mean by that is the more that I
He's the answer.
follow, learn, grow, suffer, fail, like, existence doesn't make sense without Christ, bro. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, reality does not make sense without Christ.
Yeah. It's true.
You can't make sense of everything that's happening in it, the complexity of it, the suffering that's involved, like all the things that you're talking about, your own story. To me, just doesn't make sense. And I get that even still in it making the most sense that it possibly can make, there are still moments where it doesn't make sense because God doesn't give me all the answers to all my questions. But as I think about my own life, right? College soccer player, and obviously I was fortunate enough to do that. But that's not where my story begins, right? I think about the fact that I should probably have tons of kids out of wedlock. I probably should, probably should have been a drug dealer. Probably should have ended up in somewhere very different than where I've ended up. And yet, as I look back on my life, I see that there were moments where God intervened and did things that prevented me from getting in situations where my life could be very different from where it is right now, or maybe I wouldn't even exist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I look at all that, and like you, bro, like my passion for learning, like I didn't like school. I didn't like any of that type of stuff until I fell in love with the Lord and fell in love with learning and understanding the word, understanding who he was and what he's doing and why he's doing it and what that means. And so then this pursuit happens, and then God kind of shifts that and crafts that into what we're doing now, which is having conversations about him, talking to young people about him, trying to figure out how best to reach young people, trying to figure out how best to be a part of the church and play our part in the story that God is calling us to be a part of, his story, right? And I think about all that in the context of the people that we've seen go on to do ministry or to build businesses or to be professional athletes or whatever in the Lord. And then also the friends that we have that like would say they don't follow Jesus no more, that they've turned away from that or, or avidly against it now. Like I think about all of those things too. And so as I like hold all of that together, I would say like he is the answer. Like it just, everything, like existence, reality doesn't make sense without him. It doesn't make sense without him at the center, in his word and the story that scripture gives us kind of shaping our reality and our existence. And so, that would be my answer. And I think ultimately, that's the answer that I want to give to this next generation too. Like, Christ is the way to make sense of existence. He's not just some religious entity like all the other religious entities. He's not just some cool story, some moral teacher. He is the answer. You know what I mean? And that's how scripture presents him too. Like, that's pretty unique. So
even to tie into that, bro, because I want to dive into that of what does it mean to have an answer for something. And I think that's a very important question, because especially with with moral relativism and the idea of there is no meaning, you have to create your own meaning, the idea of individualism, and just all these ideas of there's too many variables. Like, I think that one of the ways, I think it's crazy, but one of the ways that Jesus showed in the scriptures, one of the ways that he showed that he was the answer is that he had authority. And I think that's what it boils down to. It can go a little bit more further, but really when it comes to anything that is philosophical, deal with rationality, with understanding, even to wisdom, it all points down to authority, right? Because there's two things you're going to have to really wrestle with. If you're really trying to understand something, two questions you're going to really wrestle with is who has the right and who has the authority. And I think one of the things that Christ showed in the scriptures, in the gospels, one of the ways he showed the people that he was the Messiah, that he was the answer to salvation, is that he had the authority. And I think if he didn't carry that authority with him in the gospels, people really wouldn't follow him like that. And so I think one of the ways that he showed it was he had the authority from the Father, and the Father gave him the authority, and that he's going to draw people to him, right? No one can go to the Father except through him. He is the way, the truth, and the life. Like, he showed in his life that he has the authority. That authority has been given to him by the Father. And I think that's one of the ways he showed people that he is the answer to suffering, that he is the answer to struggle and addiction and mental health, peace, understanding, even understanding. I think that's one of the things when it comes to what does it mean to have an answer, is you have to point to who's in authority.
No, it's good, bro. I like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I like that a lot.
I think that's one of the things that makes him pretty great. Because if Christ didn't, like Paul said, right, if he didn't rise from the dead, then all this is pointless.
Yep.
Right. That's the ultimate flex of authority, is that literally death cannot hold me, bro. I died, went to hell, came back, big bro. Like, nothing has authority over Jesus, nothing. And so it's like, what better way to show people that you are the answer to existence than that miracle right there? You know what I mean?
No, it's good, bro.
And then every other conversation and concept or idea falls, it goes right after that. You know what I mean? Because why would someone put their life on the line, someone be boiled in oil or crucified upside down or beheaded, unless they understand that there is an authority figure that holds all power, and I am actually good even if you cut my head off. Like, there's that, you wrap your mind around that, bro.
It's crazy. And I mean, that's actively happening right now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We got brothers and sisters in Africa right now, in the Middle East, being murdered for their faith. And what are they saying? Like, yo, my faith means more than flesh and blood, and I know that. You know what I'm saying? This isn't the end. You know what I mean? It's profound to think about, bro. It's incredibly challenging when I think about that stuff. And I think about the fact that I live here and we're doing this podcast right now.
Yeah.
Chilling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. Seriously. And like, it's crazy, bro, because like, those people are showing, like, people that are doing that. Like, it's crazy, bro, that there are people that think that people that believe in God are weak. And I think it's like, it's a silly idea, because it's like, I want to know what you think weak is, and what does weak mean, and what type of strength have you accomplished that I haven't, and what makes you think that life won't bring you down to your knees? And it's like, it makes me think, who do you run to when all things shake? You know what I mean?
I think people say that, or the general disposition I've heard behind that is kind of this idea of, you know, you guys need your sky daddy so you can feel better about, you know, how insignificant your life is, and, you know, what you do or don't accomplish, or whether you're suffering or whether you're poor or whatever else. And so you have this afterlife to look forward to that makes you feel better about the state of your existence now. Instead of just coming to terms with the reality that there is nothing, right? That's their position. And so you make the most of what you have here.
Just lazy thinking.
Yeah. I mean, once again, to me, it just makes no sense. And it just makes everything completely pointless. Obviously we can go down that rabbit trail, but we don't need to. Yeah, man, I think when I think about this next generation, as we're talking about this idea of what our faith actually requires, what Jesus actually says, what it's actually supposed to cost, that needs to be communicated to them. Like, when we're talking them through who Jesus is, we need to actually talk them through the cost of what it actually means to follow him. Like, yeah, bro, you might lose some friends. Yes, people might not like you. Yes, God might call you to move to the other part of the world. Yes, God might call you to be martyred like that. Like, it's not, I'm not saying it's likely, but I'm saying it can happen. Like, you know what I mean? And like, it is happening currently. Obviously, it doesn't really happen in our context, but still, who knows where God's going to call you to go and what he's going to call you to do. And that's because we're a part of this larger story, and we're a part of building his kingdom in this world, right? And we know that this world is opposed to following Jesus. And so, I just think it's super interesting, how publicly like pushed back against Christianity is as it compares to other faiths, right? That's something that's always been fascinating to me. The way people are willing to publicly disrespect or disregard or make fun of Christ, and they won't do that to other faiths.
Yeah.
It's always been interesting. I feel like that's a clue. But yeah, man, I think we have to do a great job, or I don't know if great job's the right word. I think we just have to be honest with young people. Like, yo, this is what it's supposed to cost you. This is what it's about. It's not all fun and games. It's not all roses. It's not everything's going to work out for you. In fact, being a Christian, usually life gets harder, not easier, right? Let's just keep it a stack. It gets harder. And once again, I think at the same time, I could say it gets easier because now I have this internal peace and this internal foundation that as I experience the difficulties of life, I'm not shaken in the ways that I would be if I didn't have Christ, right? Because the reality is those things are still, death is still coming for me. Sickness is still coming for me. Challenges and suffering is still coming for me. My parents are still going to die. You know what I mean? Tragedy is, I'm sure at some point, is still going to hit my life and has hit my life in the past. You know what I'm saying? And so those things are unavoidable. But as I move through those things throughout the path that God has charted for me, he's walking with me, which makes all the difference.
Yeah, what was it? So a couple things, man. I think the first thing is that not only would like God send you to other places, and I think the biggest thing, I think the most challenging thing is that that you will lose yourself. I think that's probably one of the most hardest things that you can do is to lose yourself to find it. And the complete denial and death of self is profoundly difficult, bro. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I think it's one of the things that Gen Z has to really wrestle with is the fact that the things that you do to find who you are, you have to lose in order to find it. And you have to do that in Christ, though. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about the gospel is that you literally have to let go or surrender will so you can find the beauty within Christ that you are made to attach yourself to. And so I think that's probably one of the biggest goals. I was listening to this podcast yesterday. It was Bishop Robert Barry. Shout out to Bishop Robert Barry. Y'all should look him up. It's pretty dope. He was talking about liberty, bro, and the idea of freedom. And I think this is why we need to redefine what freedom is, because because freedom is not the idea to do what you want, to choose whatever you want. That's not freedom. That is I will go as far as to say freedom is a secular idea, in a sense of choice, right? Let me make sure I phrase this well. It was, I forgot the old thinker's name, but he said, because we're talking about the idea of liberty, right? Christ has set us free. We have been liberated, right? What does that mean? They talked about that liberty is the discipline of desire, so the achievement to pursue the good can be possible. So what does that mean? I think that means we was in bondage to sin, and any amount of good was worthless because of the bondage and the judgment that was over us. Mm-hmm. So what Christ has done is set us free from the bondage and judgment of sin and liberated us to pursue the good through the desires, through the discipline of desire, right? And so, like, we have to make the distinctions between good desires and bad desires, surrendering of the will, trusting in Christ with our soul and salvation and decision making. Like, that's true freedom. I am free to be what God has made me to be, not
what you ought
free
to
be whatever I want to be. You know what I mean? And I think
that's good.
That's the freedom that Christ offers.
By the way, you got something in your beard, by the way.
Oh, let it be.
He said, "Let it be." Hey, I gotta let you know. You know what I'm saying? Gotta take care of the beard.
No, I appreciate that. But you understand what I'm saying?
No, I do. I think it's interesting though. So when I think about desire, I don't necessarily. It's interesting, good or bad desire. I would say at this point, desire is neutral, and then how we live it out becomes good or bad. So like, I might feel lonely and want to be connected to somebody, but that connection could be me calling Chris and saying, yo, let's chop it up, or me spending time with my wife, or it could be me looking at porn. It could be me gambling. It could be me, whatever. So like, I have this desire, right? And I think this desire is part of what makes us human, right? I think it's part of what makes us image bearers. But I can live out the desire in a godly or ungodly way, right? And so often what happens now is we live out our desires in an ungodly way because of sin. And so I think that's how I would define it at this point. But I think definitely your ideas about choice, I think it's really interesting because if God created us, then the way that he created us is actually the way that if we'll live that way, we're actually going to find the most fulfillment and enjoyment and satisfaction. If that's true. So if I've been designed in a particular way and I figure out how I'm designed and then I live that way, that's actually how I'm going to find the most fulfillment and contentment. Do you get what I'm saying?
What do you mean by that, though? Yeah, what do you mean by that? I don't know.
So, okay. So I'm trying to think about it this way. So it's like when a thing is used the way it's intended to be used, it actually fits its maximum, most optimal purpose, right? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like if I take something and use it for something else other than what it's created for, right? Then it's not being used for its optimal maximum purpose, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
It's almost like you're making me think on the fly. So you're gonna have to bat this around with me. It's almost like have you ever like eaten something but you expected it to taste like something else, so it didn't taste good?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? So you're confused?
Yeah.
It's almost like that in the sense that when the thing is what I expect it to be and I taste it and it tastes really good. You see what I'm saying? And so I'm kind of like trying to get this idea together of like when the things line up the way they're actually intended to line up, right? When I have the thing and I use it for the thing that it was actually created to be used for, its best use. And I think the same is true for us in that sense.
Absolutely.
And in the sense of, and it's not a perfect analogy, but in the sense of when I eat the thing, but I expect it to taste like something else, it doesn't taste right. But when I know what it is and I eat it, it tastes really good. Yeah. It's the same concept of like when I'm doing what I'm supposed to do the way that I'm supposed to be doing it, I think I experience the full satisfaction and contentment that I'm supposed to, because I'm actually living and operating the way that I'm made to live and operate. And maybe there's a better analogy for that, but that's what's in my brain right now. So I'm trying to work it through as we're talking about it.
No, I get you. I follow what you're saying. So it's almost in the sense of talking about the blueprint, the structure of design versus the social construct of culture. So there's like a distinction between those two things, right? It's because
hold on, I'll put it this way. I think I got a better analogy. Sorry to interrupt you.
Okay.
So C.S. Lewis talked about this idea of God, like obedience, right? So like it's easier to love something or someone that's being obedient, if that makes sense, or is doing the things they're supposed to do. So if I have an animal and that animal trashes my house, right, every time I leave it alone, it's not that I don't love the animal, but it's becoming difficult to express love towards the animal because it keeps destroying my property. But if I have a great relationship with the animal and it's not destroying my property, it's peeing in the right places, you know, when I come home, it greets me at the door and, you know, we share hugs and, you know, we share time together. And, you know what I'm saying? Like, then our relationship, there's more love and connection there. Does that make sense? And so I think in the same way, like in the context of relationships, it's like, when we're doing the thing we're supposed to do optimally in that relationship, we get to experience the fullness of the satisfaction and contentment that comes in that relationship. And so in the same way, I think that applies to us as well, like in terms of self. So when I'm doing the thing, because like, think about it this way. When you're in relationship with somebody and like you're just vibing, the relationship's dope, you're kind of like doing the dance of relationship really well. It's not just that they're enjoying you, but you're enjoying them, but you're also enjoying yourself in the sense that things are going well. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yep. You're enjoying the nature of the relation itself.
Correct. And so like, but you also are enjoying the way that you're operating in that relationship. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's not just that you're enjoying that person, but you're enjoying how you're operating in the relationship with that person. You feel me?
That you found your place, you found your position.
Yes. And so in the same way, I'm saying, yo, when we do that with God, and we operate in our relationship with him in the way we're supposed to, which is discovering how he's created us and then living that out, I think there's a satisfaction and contentment that comes there for the self. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Okay, I think that's a better way of putting it.
That is, because now we're talking about, that's what freedom is. I think that's what freedom is. I think that's what freedom is.
Yes, I agree 1,000%.
Yep.
100%.
Yeah.
That is true freedom.
That is what Christ offers. That.
Correct. Being who you're actually created to be and living how you were actually designed to live. And that is actually what's best for you. And you are actually going to have the best existence and best life possible on this side of eternity in a broken, fractured world if you live that way.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that is that is crazy. That I guess the question becomes, how do we communicate this to Gen Z? You know what I mean? This is because this is going to be a broad. This is a broad of topics here that has literally just been created. And so, if freedom is the ability to be who you was made to be and not to do whatever you want, right? It's literally to be in your operating system, and that's where you're going to find the most satisfaction and pleasure and peace, even when things go bad, right? Because this even reflects the loving nature of God, right? And so I think Gen Z has a hard time finding this, right? And this was interesting though, right? Because you talked about this is the most pleasant and things of that nature. This is what Gen Z is. Well, I would say all humans, but we're talking about Gen Z right now. Is that one of the main things that humans do to find identity is through pleasure, right? Let me go out and experience the world. Let me try different things, right? Let me try different relationships. Let me try different forms of relationships. Let me try this type of drug here, this alcohol here. Like, let me just explore. Let me explore the world and see what sticks to me. And so I think like when it comes to Christ and he's revealed, he's gonna stick to you very hard, because I think it's like the soul recognizes this light, and it beams on it, bro, and it just attaches itself to it. And it's not even in a deceiving way. It's like I belong here. This is where I actually belong. And so
this is who I am.
This is who I am. And so it's just like I'm trying to figure out how to form this conversation because I think this is a problem. I understand that we have to communicate that Gen Z needs Jesus or just human beings in nature. But how do you communicate that people need to be saved? How do you communicate the idea of Messiah, right? Because that's what it's going to boil down to, is that we have to communicate the idea of salvation so you can experience what we just talked about, the idea of freedom and what Christ offers. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think that comes in the unique ways in which Gen Z is experiencing reality, or just like young people in general, Gen Z, Gen A, like the things that are unique about the world that they're growing up in, and the unique challenges that they face as a consequence, right? Like technology, social media. I know we always hop on it, but those things are massively shaping the way that they view the world and influencing that. And so both positively and negatively. And so I think to tap into the beauty and the tragedy of that and to help them reconcile that, I think leads to the gospel as an answer and the need for Christ. I think, you know, they're a generation that cares deeply about justice, right? And about equality and different things of that nature. So I think once again, pointing them to the cross as the answer to those questions, and the implications of the cross as the answer to those questions, I think is also deeply important. I think with the gender confusion, sexuality, all those different types of conversations, and as we talked about desire and having how to have your desires met, and how we're actually designed, and the implications of that. Once again, I think that's another big conversation that the gospel gives an answer to, that is incredibly compelling in my mind. And so I think about, what are the issues, right? Like, I can't remember, maybe it was Martin Luther or someone else who said, if you preach the gospel and don't preach the gospel to the issue in the culture, then you haven't preached the gospel, right? And so it's like, I think the issues that exist in their culture, if we ask them questions, which we love to do, we can discover what it is that are the issues for them, where are the areas that they're struggling, what are the things that they're wrestling with, and then present to them the gospel in a way that connects with that issue that they're experiencing, right? And how Christ is the answer for that. Because like I said, like at the beginning, like I believe Jesus is the answer, right? And so, but I think him being the answer shows up in a ton of different ways, in an infinite amount of ways, right? I think that also is what's so incredibly compelling about Christianity. Like, Jesus is saving people everywhere, all different types of backgrounds, poverty, rich, poor, black, white. It don't matter. It don't matter what your story is. It don't matter what you've done. It don't matter what's been done to you. Like, Christ is reaching into people's lives and reconciling them to themselves. And so when you go to a church, whether it be the church you go to every Sunday, or you're visiting somewhere for the first time, and you get the opportunity to hear stories of people who have had their lives radically transformed by Christ, and they see him in ways that you don't see him because of what he's done in their life and because of how they needed him to reach into their lives. It's just pretty incredible. And I think, like, you know, Paul talked about it, right? The mystery of Christ revealed that God would reconcile both Jew and Gentile to himself in Christ, which I think is profound in itself, because what is one of the major things that the world is trying to figure out? How do we find peace, world peace, people living in harmony and living, even though they're uniquely different, still being able to live together and coexist, so to speak. And so, like, how? What is the thing that unifies us that would allow us to do that? Once again, I do not believe there is a more compelling answer. There isn't a more compelling answer than Christ, the ultimate reconciler, the ultimate equalizer, right? Like, he literally cancels out everything else. And that's like the beauty of the church, that Christ is reconciling to himself all these different people from all these different backgrounds who've done all these different types of things, can be reconciled in him. It's insane.
It is. And I think think one of the problems with that, bro, is that it has to be compelling, though, because the world's going to reject it. It is interesting to know that there is a kingdom that cannot be seen, but it's everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And it has its own principles. It has its own concepts and commandments, and it is just increasing. And the only way that can be displayed is how the citizens serve each other.
Yes.
And they have to serve each other in such a unique way that it stands out above any other kingdom around
which has been a problem.
Exactly. And so I think like this goes back to, again, the blueprint of design, or the design of the blueprint versus culture and social constructs and influences and devices and all these other things that humans wrestle with. Like it's what was it? That's why love is a very powerful and profound idea and concept and reality. Because love is a moral principle. It's not an emotion. You can feel love fine, but it has to be an action. And again, God is love. He is like
Mm-hmm.
is. There's no other word. He is, right? The resource of the thing that we all desire, sometimes show, sometimes see, comes from him.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives it out freely. It's embedded in our it's embedded in our nature and our minds and our psyches and our hearts. Like he is love. And he has set us free to pursue that love in this structure of his kingdom. I find that pretty interesting, right? And so like, how can I say it? Like, I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if freedom exists, then freedom has to be moral, right? And why does freedom have to be moral? Freedom has to be moral because freedom gives you the opportunity to pursue something. And if you pursue something with freedom, that doesn't mean, like, it goes back to our conversation, you just can't do whatever you want. Paul says, since we're set free, does that mean we can do whatever we want? Surely not. There is a structure to this freedom that we're given.
Mm-hmm.
And it's freedom is given so you can pursue the love of Christ, so you can pursue the love of God,
That's
the
good.
resource of all things that is. And so the thing that we ought to pursue as citizens of the kingdom of God is the reflection that the world needs to see, is God's love. And I think like that's something that we have to show Gen Z, is that type of love and kindness. You know what I mean? And it's hard for me to understand, like, how can I even say it? Like, even sometimes lack of judgment, bro. I understand that judgment is a part of life, and I understand that judgment is a part of decision making, but also I think judgment has a negative connotation on it. How do you say that word, bro?
Connotation
on it, because I don't want to judge, bro, but sometimes I do.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, when I hang around Gen Z and I kick it with them and I have fun with them, we have a good time, and I don't really judge because it's I get life is hard and it's difficult, and I really don't judge because I understand the position, but there's going to be a point in time where I'm going to have to. So it's almost like judgment cannot be avoided. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
how
I
can
get
we
you.
show Gen Z? This is going to be an issue, bro. People don't want to be judged, right? There's this trend. I don't know if it's old or anymore, but it's called listen and don't judge.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like this idea of escaping judgment or escaping how people perceive you. I get that sometimes it can be harsh, but it's also unavoidable because judgment is embedded in the world. You can't escape judgment.
Yeah, I get you.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, by some kind of standard, obviously.
Yeah.
Whether it's a personal standard or a more transcendent one. And obviously we're talking about judging based on a more transcendent standard.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is why it becomes important to obviously proclaim the truth and let it say what it says. And I think we continue to love, right? So I think we continue to build relationship, connect. And I think on that personal level, building relationship, I think we show, we don't show partiality in the sense that we love students no matter where they find themselves in their faith journey the same, right? So I show the same love to the kid who's an atheist, and the kid that's a Christian. Now, you know what I'm saying? Like when we're having conversations about truth, obviously that's different, right? And so I got to proclaim what the truth is, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to change how I treat you. And I think what happens is we often change how we treat kids, and that's the problem, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, and I think once again, I think if you treat them genuinely with love and respect, and as the same as you're treating other kids, they won't take it. They won't get offended when you proclaim truth to them, if that makes sense. Because I think oftentimes what happens is we proclaim truth to kids and then we treat them differently, instead of just treating them the same. Like, yo, this is what it is. Here's what we believe. Here's why. Here's the truth. Here's why. Okay, bet. Let's eat. Let's keep chopping about it whenever you're ready.
Yeah.
And I'm not treating you any different. I'm hitting you up like I hit every other kid up. I'm checking in on you like I check on every other kid. I'm going to your games the same way I go to other kids' games. And maybe I'm even doing it more for you than I'm doing it for other kids. So yeah. But no, that's good, bro. That's good.
I like that.
I think this is a good spot to land the plane.
Yeah.
It's dope. Okay, bet. Well, first test doing it remotely for a while. Obviously, we're getting ready to bring some guests on, so I'm super excited about that. As we always say, beginning of the conversation, not the end. Questions, comments, concerns, you know where to find us. We love you. We'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.